So I've been following the case of Mohbad, the Nigerian artist who died a couple of years ago in relation to VeryDarkMan, the Nigerian activist. And I must say it gives me hope. It gives me hope because we Nigerians, we are used to status quo regarding issues of oppression in our country. For example, we vote politicians into power to represent us and our needs, to be our voices, the voices for those without one. And invariably, once they get the power, they turn against us. The same people we vote into power end up using that power against us to destroy our interests for their own self interest. And so it's actually very refreshing that someone like this very dark man is doing what he's doing. For example, remember the case of the guy who beat up an Uber driver and threatened to buy him and put him in his freezer or something like that. He said he would buy the guy, the Uber man, and no one would do anything about it or to him. Now, if it was Nigeria of yesterday, the guy would have done exactly what he boasted about and got away with it. You see, the guy boasted because he thought he was still in the Nigeria of yesterday, but he did not reckon with someone like Very Dark Man. Another scenario is the kids who were out of school for a very long time. The teachers went on strike because they had not been paid their very meager salaries for months. Very Dark Man went on protest along with the children. Of course, many said it was for his own self interest. Really foolish people, actually. Anyway, a few days later, the teachers were reinstated and the kids were back in school. The same politicians who said there was no money somehow mysteriously found the money to pay these teachers. The same leaders who said there was no money to pay these teachers somehow miraculously found the money, and the teachers ended the strike and the children went back to school. And now here is where we come to the reason for this, my very little podcast. Here is the cocoa of the oro, as they say in Nigeria, or as we say in Nigeria, the case of Mobad. Mobad is dead. Nobody knows what killed him. We are told he died of ear infection, maybe a reaction to that injection it was given by a mysterious nurse, or he died of the injury sustained after his concert. You name it, we've had all kinds of scenarios. Again, if it was Nigeria of yesterday, we would have all gone emotional, cried over him, then go on after a couple of months. Business as usual, status quo continued. But again, we are not in the Nigeria of yesterday. And for that, we have to be very, very grateful for Very Dark Man, for someone like Very Dark Man. Sometimes I go into the comment sections of his posts, the post by Very Dark Man, or something concerning him. And I read people praying for him, telling him he should be careful, that they hope nothing happens to him. And of course, they are right in a way because for someone like that who is really ruffling feathers, not just feathers, but strong and powerful feathers of people who are used to doing whatever they want to anyone they want, these are really logical prayers. These power figures, so used to lack of accountability, nothing was facing them, no one was daring to haste them, right? But now here comes this young man, very dark man, who is daring to ask questions about their nefarious dealings. What the heck? They are suddenly realizing today Nigeria is not like the Nigeria of yesterday, which is why we must be really grateful for someone like Very Dark Man. Again, I'm saying that. And in case you were wondering, nothing will happen to Very Dark Man. The guy is going nowhere for a very simple reason. When a person becomes a movement by virtue of his impact, by virtue of what he does, that person never dies. Even if he himself physically dies, is think about someone like Martin Luther King. The guy is not dead, even though he's dead. What about Lumumba, Patrick Lumumba? Or I could go on and name a whole bunch of names. People who have fought for justice over time, and we still arrive at the same conclusion. Even though their bodies were pie, their souls did not pie. Because when a person becomes a movement, they become more than just their physical being, and therefore they never ever pie. As a matter of fact, such people become more powerful in death than in life, in real life, when they were alive. Now I know that some people don't like him, and of course, Very Dark Man can be sometimes a bit of a rough diamond, a bit of a handful of raw red coal, if you will. But you cannot deny the impact he's making. Even if you hate the person, you cannot but love what he's doing. You cannot but love the progress he's making. As a Nigerian, I'm mighty grateful for who he is. Even though I live in the diaspora, I've felt the terrible impact of the disintegration of my country, Nigeria, my birthplace. They say what hurts the eye hurts the nose, and what hurts the nose eventually hurts the mouth as well. And so I felt every pain people back home have experienced, not just because they are my people, but because I have had to take care of able bodied people who are used to taking care of themselves, but can no longer do so because of the state of the nation, because of the hardship in the nation. Whatever affects our people back home affects most Nigerians abroad because we have family members back home who depend on us for their very basic needs. And so when we hear of all of the insecurities and all of these people doing whatever because they've been given power, power that we gave, that was given to them by the community, by the people in the first place. When we hear that they are using that same power to go against our communities, to marginalize and oppress us, when we hear all of these things, we are in pain, just like the people back home. And so we have to be really grateful for someone like Very Dark Man. Look at what he's been able to achieve and is still achieving. Look at Benue or Enugu, what he did in those places. Before, when these things happened, we wept about it. And when we were done weeping, we went about our life as usual, business as usual. Whilst the politicians and leaders paid scant attention to our pain, but it's no longer the case. Today, people are actually very careful in their evil doings because they know somehow if it gets to very dark man, there will be consequences. They will be called to justice, to accountability. Like I said, you may not like the man because he can sometimes be a bit of a rough diamond, but no one can deny the results. Nobody is perfect. Very dark man has his own weak points, his flaws. But you have to agree that he's doing something that we have not seen for a very long time in our society. And for that, we have to be grateful to him. Again, I'm saying it. When I think of very dark man, I'm kind of reminded of this story in the Bible where a blind man was healed by Jesus. The Sadducees and Pharisees of the time, the leaders of the time, we could say they were the politicians of the time. They protested because they hated Jesus. They rose up and said, "This Jesus you are boasting about and praising, do you know that he's a heretic?" Something like that, that he disobeys the laws. Basically, that Jesus was a very bad man. The formerly blind man, but now seeing man, responded, "I don't know what he is, so, and I don't even care what he is. All I know is that once I was blind and now I can see." Case closed. And so he has become the nemesis of the cruel, unscrupulous, terrible so called leaders in our society. Very dark man has become that. He has become the nemesis of unscrupulous Nigerians. He has become the nemesis of evil or evils of all kinds in our society. As a matter of fact, you could go as far as saying that the fear of a very dark man is making evil people sit straight. I have money. What can anybody do to me? These people used to think. He's making them sit up. How can you not love someone like that? Seriously. God has a way of answering prayer, so it's all I can say. Sometimes we Christians, we pray to God to send help, to send any kind of help. But sometimes God chooses to answer those prayers in his very own, may I call it funny way. Some Christians may even look at very dark man and disdain him because he does not fit in with their idea or ideal of what constitute a good person or even a Christian. And to them I say, what if very dark man is the answer to the prayers of the voiceless and disenfranchised in Nigeria? What if he has been sent by God Himself for exactly such a time as this? After all, God does work in mysterious ways, doesn't He? I, for one, am very grateful for Very Dark Man. I'm grateful for what he's doing in our society. My name is Sarah Udoh-Grossfurthner. I am the brain behind From Fearful to Fierce, a movement, if you would, because I too am sort of like a movement, the movement of saying, kind of paraphrasing Candy now, the change you want to see. Start that change within yourself. And so you cannot say you want to see a non corrupt society. Meanwhile, every single action of yours is permeated with corruption. Anyway, once again, I'm very grateful for someone like Very Dark Man. Very, very grateful. And we all should be.